Hey, this is Heidi Dawson. If you love all things health and wellness and style of any kind, hang out here with me each week. I'm obsessed with never-ending improvement, and it's all in an effort to help each one of us live a wildly successful lifestyle. Subscribe today so you don't miss a thing.
Hi, guys. Welcome to episode 472 of the Wildly Successful Lifestyle Podcast. I really do feel like we're old friends, and I love getting to be with you like this, even if it's just a few minutes a couple times a week, and I know it is. Thanks for letting yourself be one of the people who, like me, now recognize that we control more about our life than we were ever taught. I mean, together we're making sure that we don't make our life any harder than it has to be, and most of that starts and ends in our own head. So I read this week that a majority of our life is experienced in our own head through our imagination and our perspective. When I read that, I thought, wow, you think about it, that's really true, because what we make things mean basically depicts how happy or mad we are at any given time. A big part of that, though, is that we're not alone on an island. We actually live with other people, thank goodness, right? Sharing our space at any given time with other people. So not only are we affecting ourselves by the things we think and do, a lot of times we're affecting other people too. Now, I don't say that because it's someone else's fault if we're having a bad day, or it's our fault if someone else is having a bad day, because it is not. I control me and you control you, and everyone else controls themselves. And you and me, though, you being someone who's with me each week, listening to these episodes as we go along, you know that other people can't affect you unless you let them. But not everybody knows that. And even though we're aware of that, not all the time do we apply it either. Sometimes we allow ourselves to be very affected by other people too. Of course, we're human. But I hope that just like me, you're becoming more and more aware of when you do allow someone to ruin your day or ruin a moment, whatever it is. I hope you catch it and you fix it on your end, like I like to say. The thing I've noticed, though, that trips me up the most is when there's a lack of communication. So have you ever heard or had someone tell you that they were going to call you about this thing that is really important to you, and then crickets, they didn't call? Maybe you're waiting on pins and needles for a call back from a doctor about a diagnosis, or maybe you're waiting for a call back from a guy you went on a date with, or just waiting to hear about a job interview, whatever it is. But then the call didn't come when they said it would be there. What do you do when that happens? Do you just automatically give them the benefit of the doubt and just calmly assume that they'll call when they're available? That is something like what my husband would do. And so maybe some of you do that too. But that is not usually what my first go-to is. What I usually do is I start creating things in my head. All the worst case scenarios start rolling around in my head. And this is something I actively have to work on. Just this week, we have a really big project going on. I know I'm talking about it a lot, but we're working with a new cabinet company that's a little scary, and we haven't used them before. But the communication is pretty slow coming from them. And even though we know they're reputable and we feel like it's going to be just fine, we don't know for sure because we haven't used them yet. So when they tell me, we'll be measuring at the end of this month, and we're already a week into the next month, and there's been no communication whatsoever, even though we've tried to call them, my brain has gone to worst case scenarios. But I caught myself, and like I said in episode 471, I just let it go because I've done everything I can, and it's out of my control. And laying in bed at 10 o'clock at night I'm not going to fix anything. So letting go and letting God has been very helpful in that case. It's been helpful to me a lot, actually. Now, you have to make sure you're keeping up your end of the deal too, which I had, so I did let it go. And now that I know that everything is going to work out just fine. And even though I still haven't heard back from the cabinet company, I know they've given us a date and it's going to be just fine. But my point with this episode is twofold. Okay, so yes, I have to take care of it on my end. I have to control my thoughts and my engaging and worst case scenario thinking. But it also helps me remember for when the shoe is on the other foot. When you're supposed to communicate, even if what you have to say is not what someone wants to hear, it's better to communicate than not, because we know human nature is to create scenarios in our head. And most of the time, those scenarios are not good. It's way better to keep a line of communication open. I can handle anything as long as I'm aware of it, and so can you. But we don't want people to leave us in the dark, so let's not leave them in the dark either. But if we are left in the dark, we have to be sure that once we've kept our end of the deal, we have to manage our mind. We have to fix it on our end so that we don't make ourselves crazy with worst case scenarios. Communication will fix most things. I venture so far as to say good communication is second only to our own mindset and the quality of our lives. In fact, Tony Robbins says the way we communicate with others and with ourselves ultimately determines the quality of our lives. And then Peter Shepard said, communication is the solvent of all problems and is the foundation for personal development, which I couldn't agree more. If I've said it once, I've said it a million times that communication is the key to keeping clients happy, even if they don't love what we have to say. It's also the key to a happy marriage, good relationships with your coworkers, friends, family, you name it. You see, most of us can deal with anything as long as we know what's coming. It's the creating of worst case scenarios when no communication is had that causes us the most pain. Think about the worst worries or fears you've had. Just think about them. Really think. Most of them never came to fruition. I mean, if you're really honest, they haven't. It's said that 95% of your worst fears never actually come to fruition. So that idea that a majority of our life is experienced in our head, that's why some people are so miserable, because they don't know how to get out of their head. And that's why I work on it daily, getting out of my own head, because I want to experience life in an intentionally created way. Not in the way my mind on autopilot would have it, but I also want my relationships with anyone I'm dealing with to be really good. And so that means communication on my part needs to also be intentional. And it also means that I have to make sure that if I don't get the communication from someone I was hoping for, I need to fix it on my end and not go straight to worst case scenarios. Giving a reasonable amount of time for a response is fair. You never know what people are going through. So giving them grace is part of that fixing it on my end thing. Your life is going to be so much better for doing that. That's my challenge to you this week, is to communicate as you wish you were communicated with. And if that isn't reciprocated, then manage your mind about it. Or in other words, fix it on your end. Share this with 2 of the people you talk to the most. I love you guys. I'll talk to you in a few days.
Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends, because we're just going to keep going bigger and better places together, and I love that about us. Talk to you in a few days.